Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
I'm just seeing you. Sorry. Uh-huh. All right, we're going to try this again. My computer's not working. Important dates. Registration is now open, and the link will show as we go further down the agenda. Team registration is due on November 1st. Your initial rosters are due to us November 15th. And the schedules hopefully will be on the website posted to you for November 19th. Our season is starting December 1st weekend and January 5th weekend for the 10 and 12U non-tournament. Rosters will freeze for the 18-14. Anybody who's playing in December, they will freeze December 11th. Playoff dates will start February 2nd, that weekend. Kevin? Sorry, we're sharing computers here, so give us 1 second.
Were you able to hear? Because
I heard you.
Competition. Sorry, I think we were having a problem with our the microphones. So moving on to the competition committee. If anybody, again, okay, we're apparently it's resolved, so people are saying that they can hear now. Moving on to the competition committee, and just want to explain what this is. It's a committee. It's not the delegates, what you're fairly used to. So what you can do is, if you're interested in being on this committee, it may be 5 or 7 people or so. We can just email into us, and then we can look through and kind of select people, because we want to select a broad range of people who have larger parishes, smaller parishes, Montgomery, PG, DC, so on and so forth. But this competition committee is to kind of help look at some of the rules that we have in place, to look at some of the enforcements, to help with checking out rosters and so on. And it is a volunteer committee, and it's also an advisory committee. So they don't make the final decisions. They just advise on that. We're also looking for one for an overall for all the sports, but we're also looking for ones for individual sports. And these members would not be representing their parishes. They will have a parish perspective, but they will not be representing their parishes. Moving on to communications, Mary has some information about the process of communicating.
All right, so as you can see on the agenda, the communication should go parents and players report to coaches, coaches to the parish sports commissioner or athletic director if you don't have a sports commissioner. Then it'll go to the basketball competition committee, and then to myself here at the office. If you have requests, we started this with soccer, so some of you are aware of it. We have a new website or a new email called CYO request@adw.org. And that's if you realize, something came up and they're having a confirmation retreat and you now need to change a game. Please send those requests in. It's a tickler file that gives us an opportunity to follow up. You'll get an email from us saying that we've received it. So any requests need to go there, but don't also email Kevin or myself, because it's just a double email. This is a way that we're using to do that. We are going to have some game day reports and lopsided winner and loser reports. Those will be on our website, and you will need to complete those. Game day reports would be, you got to the gym and there were no chairs out for the players or something like that. It'll give us an overall information on your games. The lopsided winner and loser report is to be completed if your game ends in a 20-point differential. So if your game ends under the mercy rule, you'll need to fill that out. Coach's contact information, very important. I need information. What we put on the website is only as good as what you guys give us. I have to have the name and the email of your head coaches. I can take that information from the SurveyMonkey when you register your teams. But if the coaches aren't known at that point, you can go ahead and email us, information after the fact. If I see that John Smith is the AD at St. Sebastian's, and he's coaching all the teams. I know obviously you don't have your coaches in place yet, and those coaches won't be listed, but I do need that information. Very important on that. Also, if you have like two teams, make sure, you're telling me team one is coached by this person and team two on the other, so that we have that information. All right, Kevin's going to talk to you about some scheduling conflicts and requests.
Okay, let me move this up. For schedule conflicts and requests, I mean, obviously when you're putting in your registrations, you want to list any conflicts that you have, to say, well, I can't play on this date, I can't play on that date, or, I can't play before 3, I can't play after 3. But please list all those. I know things do come up where you find out later that there's a confirmation retreat, but you do want to make sure that you get as many of those in as possible so that we can do what we can to work around those. We try to honor them, and we do a pretty good job of getting almost all of them in. Occasionally, we run into a situation where two parishes have the same conflict or conflicts within one another. So at a certain point in time, you may have to give up one. But again, the majority of those do get resolved. Once you have your teams up and the schedules are set, then again, we'll still try to work with you as much as possible, but the teams are going to need to work with each other to say that if a conflict came up, how they can get it resolved. And in some cases, so whoever the team is, if you do have that last minute conflict, you may have to be willing to accept a forfeit, because it just may not be possible for the opposing team to work around that conflict. But typically everybody understands that that's where that they all run into it. So it does work out. It does work out pretty much in the long run. So again, if you can get those into us, I'm not going to read all of these, but you can kind of see the different circumstances. And when we do have a major parish event, or if there is a confirmation retreat, we'll try to work around those as much as possible. But again, we need that information as soon as possible. If we have something scheduled and it's a last minute request, even for a confirmation, we just may not be able to work around that. Going on to let me talk about the team regions. We've used different language for regions and divisions, and we get a lot of, it's just a way to break down the areas, if you want to kind of think of them that way. We get a lot of calls or complaints, why are we in region 1 or division 1, and how come we can't be in a division 3? And you can't think of these as competitive levels. These are just mostly geographic areas. There's some historic team matches up in those, but Division 1 isn't a higher level than Division 3. They're essentially in areas. Now, whether or not Division 1 is a stronger division or not, that's just circumstance. Typically, the regions kind of work out where we're trying to keep Montgomery County and Upper Montgomery County in certain regions, and PG County in a region within other PG County teams. Silver Spring is that can kind of fall into either. But again, we're just trying to look at more geographical. And even when you talk about counties, it's we're not following hard county lines. We're looking at proximity to other parishes. So with that, we try to change the language just to say regions rather than divisions to hopefully, kind of calm some nerves if they think they're in too high or too low of a region. For the competitive levels or the divisions, you can see here, these are all the age groups, and they do go by genders. The 10U non-tournament, the 12U non-tournament, 12U Mid-Atlantic, which does have a playoff. The non-tournaments do not have playoffs. And these are all the same levels that we have. Now, we are proposing, because we've gotten a lot of requests for a 14U non-tournament. We get a lot of requests about, can you put us in a week league? We're week. So we're looking at a potential to offer a 14U non-tournament, which would essentially follow the same non-tournament rules as the 12U. But at that same point, and we may only have one division of this, and you would have to have another team in a higher level in order to go into this. You can't have your first team, in this level. But we'll talk to the teams about that. If we do not have enough teams, which would have to be a minimum of 6, but really we would want 8 in total, then we'll just take these parishes that signed up for a non-tournament and move them into to the tournament level. For Mid-Atlantic, 14U Mid-Atlantic, we have a lot of resistance for teams wanting to go in there, thinking that the level of competition is too high. And it is the highest level for the 14Us, but the reality is that some of the teams that have been asked to move down into the 14U tournament, which would be more of a B league, it ends up that we've been creating divisions within the 14U tournament that would have been the same teams that would have just played Mid-Atlantic, because there were 10 other teams who said they weren't weak enough and they weren't strong enough and they wanted to play against similar competition. But all of those teams could have just played in the Mid-Atlantic, but they, we're trying to, accommodate people, and we're trying to listen to what their strengths are. So we have created this, but you should really consider, you're really just moving down. I mean, a lot of these parishes have just moved down to try to avoid some of the teams that they're ended up playing against anyways. And there are a few more restrictions with the 14U tournament. So again, you might need some, if you want to contact us to kind of talk about where your team is at, that would be fine. But these are the different divisions. The 16U and the 18U, these are, they're considered the high school levels. We're going to get into a little bit of the eligibility later. These you have to be careful with, only because you cannot play on a high school team, your regular high school team, and be eligible to play CYO basketball, and in these ages. We do go by ages. It's not by grade. If you want to move your kids in by grade, as long as they're still age eligible, that's up to you. But again, this is the clarification on the different levels that we have and the different levels that you'll register your teams with. And you want to make sure that you try to aim for the your first teams you want to have in the higher divisions, so that because the lower divisions are reserved for true B teams. Mary, if you can talk about the registrations.
Okay, moving on to registration. You'll see there attached is the Zoomerang, the SurveyMonkey link to register. It is open as of now. Give us about an hour after we finish this, so I do not have that 14U non-tournament, that potential league, as an eligible league yet in there. Rosters. Talked about when rosters are due. If you are on Sports Pilot, you should be using Sports Pilot to send in your rosters. We also will accept the Excel format from each team, and if you're using Excel, it will need to be a separate sheet for each team. Coaches or information requirements and importance. They must have on the rosters that you send us name, date of birth, school or parish, the address, parents' email, and a jersey number. I realize jersey numbers may need to be added later as you're handing out uniforms. With that information, once it's in our sports pilot and in our registration, we do have the ability, if, for instance, we find out that Blair has a leak and we need to move those games to another school, we can actually email not only the coaches, but the entire team if we have parents' email addresses. That's why we request that information. Coaches, you must have two. Two coaches over the age of 21, and coaches are eligible if they have the background check, Virtus trained, and we're going to talk about the Play Like a Champion trainings in just a second. So coaches have to have two. That is to keep in requirement with child protection policy. Don't put yourself in a situation that you don't want to be in. Play Like a Champion is, as you see the sign behind me here, this is a Catholic coaching class that we offer. It's through the University of Notre Dame. It is a 3-hour class. It is currently being offered for free. It is not required as of this year, but it will be probably at the start of next year as we start soccer. All coaches will need to be trained. As I said, it's a 3-hour class. It's free right now, and it will probably be up to a $35 per coach fee to you as you move forward into next year. So we will be offering a class here at our offices at the Pope Francis Center in Landover Hills sometime in November. I'm working on getting that. And if your parish is interested in trying to do one at your parish, Kevin and I will come out and do that training. Just email us and we'll set up dates and figure out what we need to do. Fees. Team fees are on our website under, when you go in, not on the page where you look for like your schedules, but under just the adw.org and then Catholic Youth Organization. Registration process. There will be a $25 fee imposed this year to any teams not registering, sending your rosters through Sports Pilot. If you need information on how to log in or get with Sports Pilot, please email us and we can send you that information. Late fees and add and drop. If your team is not registered by November 15th, there is a $100 fee to add your team late. Or if you drop a team after that November 15th date. It changes schedules. It's a nightmare for us. We are trying to get schedules out to you by November 19th, and it helps if we have all of your information. So get on your kids now to register for teams. Ejections. Let me just scroll down on this so you can see this. Ejections, it is a $100 fee for any adult who is ejected from a game. The adult is suspended until we receive both the $100 fee and a letter from your pastor stating that they are aware of the situation that has been discussed at the parish level. In the rule book, it also states if a spectator is ejected and nobody will tell us who the spectator is, the coach will serve that suspension. TSLs, we use these TSLs in soccer. We want to try, it's a team sports liaison. We want to try and get it going in basketball also. That's an adult spectator who is in the spectator area, will assist with any crowd issues that will be notified. The scorekeeper and the referees will know who you are, so if they are having a problem, they will get with you to work on that. Player eligibility. Age is as November 30th of 2018, whatever age the child is at that date. High school rosters, as Kevin stated, if a child is playing for a high school team, they are not eligible to play CYO. Let's see, where are we? Floaters. There is a maximum of two floaters per team, and you cannot float laterally. So if you have a 14U, say you have a tournament team 1 and team 2, a floater cannot float from 1 and 2. They also cannot float down from a 14U Mid-Atlantic to a 14U tournament. Players from other parishes, you can have a player play for you from another parish, a neighboring parish. if their parish does not have a field team in their age group. You will need to let us know who they are just so we can verify, yes, St. Sebastian's doesn't have a 12U girls team. Yes, they can play for St. James. Exemption requests, those are going to be handled on a case-by-case basis. You have to email us, and that would be if you're trying to put somebody on a team. Do not put a player on a team that does not belong to you without notifying us and making sure that that's been cleared. Player special circumstances exemption. These would be player with special needs, disabilities. Just email us for any clarifications if you need anything like that. Somebody who has a condition is being treated, cannot play a full quarter in the 10U. We can make those exemptions, but we need to know and let our scorekeepers and referees know that that's coming, so that we're aware of that. There's a rule revision, just that we have. The 10U, we're not going to allow them to substitute for the first half of the game. They have to play 2 full quarters, no substitutions. So first 5 play the first quarter, second 5 play the second, from start to finish. Then you can change out, they can flip around. Where in the 12U, they all have to play 1 full quarter. 12U and 14U tournament teams will not allow substitutions in the first quarter. First 5 that go in, stay in. They all have a requirement of playing 1 full quarter, start to finish. We're going to go ahead to Kevin for some rule clarifications.
We're trying to just take 1 second. We're trying to. Okay, we'll come back to that. For rule clarifications, we have the play sit rule. And well, we used to have a play sit rule. Now we have a play rule. We have taken out the sit rules. So when you do for the play, whether it's you have to play a 1 quarter or 2 quarters for those leagues, you have to play the quarter start to finish. You can't play 2 minutes here and 2 minutes there. You will have to play the full quarter start to finish. I see a couple hands up and a couple questions. Let me see if let me go to one of these questions, see if I have. Okay, I don't know when this came in, but there came up a question real quickly on the age, and that the age is as of your age, how old you are as of November 30th. So if you're, for the 14, for instance, if you're still 14 on November 30th, then you would be eligible. But if you're 15 on November 30th, then you would not be eligible for the 14U. You would have to play up to the 16U. And those ages would, for each of the levels, depending on how old you are. Let me double check a couple more questions. Okay, there's a question saying, did you asking about the subbing for the first half of the game? Let me go back to that as well. So we had problems where, and this kind of goes into where people start trying to be very creative with the playing. And so for the 10U, we are changing it to that there will be no substitutions for the first half of the game. Once you put in your 5 to start the quarter, they would have to stay in for that whole quarter. Now, for the second quarter, you put in a different 5. And the reason is to help keep coaches from trying to play around with situations and start trying, because especially in the 10U, there's probably no reason for you to sub. because if you're doing that, you're probably going to end up violating a rule because you're probably not going to get your required quarters of play in. Same thing with the 12U even Mid-Atlantic and the 14U Mid-Atlantic. We're saying that you can't substitute for the first quarter because once you start subbing, then while it could be manageable, it would restrict you to the to subbing in the fourth quarter. But depending on foul situations and so on, people who have ever tried that, it gets very complicated for the scorekeepers, and in most cases, you end up not playing the required playing requirements. So this is again just to kind of help the straighten out that and clarify that situation. Substitutions, though, if there's injuries, you would be able to substitute for an injury. If some, they fall down, they bang heads, they can come out and they can go back into the next available time, and that would not count as a substitution. So going back to the rule clarifications for the play sit, so you would have to play the full quarter start to finish, and we do not have a sit rule, so you would be able to, provided all your players are getting their minimum playing requirements, then no player would necessarily have to sit at any one quarter. For the mercy rules, and these are nothing new, but when scoring 20 or more points and having a score differential of 20 or more points, you must revert to a half-court defense, or for the 10 and unders, you would have to go to the below the three-point arc. And you wouldn't be able to put any additional defensive pressure on that, so you can't reach over as the other team gets the ball and is trying to come down the court. You wouldn't be able to apply any pressure to force them to. You wouldn't be able to intercept any passes, force any turnovers, and so on. This is up to, some of this is up to the official's discretion, because there can be a quick exchange where possession hasn't been completely established, so that could be the case in that. But again, once possession is established, you would need to not put any pressure, just go back to the half court or 3-point arc on that. For the 30-point differential, the clock will run for the entire time. Even when there's a foul shot, the clock's going to continue to run as they're setting up the players, as they're taking the shots. The time will keep running with that. And a little thing on the mercy rules, as we kind of talk about, a lot of times it becomes very evident quickly that this is going to be a mismatched game. You don't have to wait until the defined mercy rules take place before starting to kind of back off on teams. But besides that, we will have to go to the imposed restrictions. For protest, we seem to get a lot of people they just love to kind of protest anything. It's kind of like throwing unlimited red flags out, for if you're in football terms. And the reality is that we do not accept any protest teams. So no games would be under review for a protest or waiting for the outcome will be the outcome. You may file complaints if you feel necessary to do that, and we would look into the complaint and try to help resolve that moving forward, but that's not going to affect the game. The one possibility is that if we do find out that there's a ineligible player, and we can go back and take action on that game. I mean, that game may turn into a forfeit. But any things having to do with judgment calls or even rules, coaches should bring rule books to each of their games. They should go over with the officials on a couple of the CYO independent rules on that, just to get clarification, make sure everybody's on the same page. If you have a question about a call, then at an appropriate stoppage of time, you can talk to the official about that in a calm demeanor. Attacking the officials would not be acceptable, but and ask them what the ruling was, why that was, and they could explain that to you to the best of their ability. And at that point, if you explain that, well, maybe that's not allowed, maybe it has to do with the half-court defense or so on, they can see if they can do something, if it's a correctable call or not, and they'll make a judgment call whether or not they choose to make that correction or not. And at that point in time, they'll take care of any items at the game site. But at the end of the game would be official. And again, if you have complaints about something that was called wrong or a weak official or whatever the case may be, you can send those in to us. You should send us in a game report after every single game, regardless of the outcome, and let us know how the officials were. You can rate the officials, you can rate the other teams, bring up any issues that may have come up, bring up any positive things that came up. We do read all these and we do look into them, but again, these would be complaints and not considered a protest. There's some examples here that that you can read through, and again, this will be available online. When we get down to roster checks, we are out at every single weekend. We're out as many games as we can get to. We try to possibly get to every single gym, at different levels, whether it's the 10Us or the 18Us, just to try to see how things are going, make sure that everything's going well, officials are there, gyms are opened, and so on. Make sure everybody's playing nice. And so we'll go out to all these, and we will have some spot roster checks. We go through and we ask where your coaches are. How come there's you're not the coach of record, and why is that? Are there issues with the team? So bring your rosters. You should have an exchangeable roster that you can give to the other team that it's safe from, it doesn't have a personal information, but that you can give to, first of all, the scorekeeper, but also to the other team. And also make sure you have your rule books, so that if you do have an issue over a call or a procedure, you'll be able to show that to the officials at the time. The rule books we're going through the rule books right now. They're not currently up online, and actually I think the link is, we were just checking the link this morning, and the link is wrong. It's going to a coach's contact information, but we'll get the link straightened out, and by Monday we'll have we'll clean up the rule books and have them online as well. And we'll come down to scoring, and we'll turn over to Mary.
All right, so scores are reported by the CYO scorekeeper. They are responsible for submitting that for the 12U Mid-Atlantic, 14U, 16, and 18U games. 12U non-tournament and 10U, we do not need scores. If you're looking at your standings and you realize, you'd go back and you check on Wednesday or Thursday, hey, my score's not posted. If you want to shoot us an email, that's fine. I do usually get to speak with all my scorekeepers over the weekend. By Monday, usually we have everything in. If for some reason you are at a game and the scorekeeper, CYO scorekeeper, is not there, then you would need to report those scores, and you can report them to CYOscores@adw.org. Playoffs, moving down. Let's say, get his screen to go. There are no playoffs again for the 10 and 12U non-tournament. Okay. 12U Mid-Atlantic and older, all eligible teams will be scheduled in a playoff bracket. Teams forfeiting 2 or more regular season games are ineligible for playoffs. Players not listed on your roster are ineligible for playoffs. Teams without complete rosters are ineligible for playoff. You'll note we did it with soccer, and you'll see it coming in basketball. If we do not have your roster and all the information on it, next to your name on your schedule will say NPE, non-playoff eligible. That's removed once we get all of our information. Teams dropping or being sanctioned by the CYO office are ineligible for playoffs. Playoff formats and seedings are structured by our office in cooperation with the competition committee. So we'll make all those determinations based on records and things like that. And I'll turn this over to Kevin for our near future. If we have any other questions.
Okay, let me just check in on any questions that may have come up. There's some again, the questions are hard to read because of the size of the window that they give us. There is a question about the physical difference of 13-year-olds versus a 12-year-old. And I can only read these like one single line at a time. All right, so there's a question about the visibility of scoreboards and a question about the physical difference. So let me get into those real quick. So the physical difference for typically, so it's pretty standard to have a 2-year age gap within the with any sports league, and that's what we have. We have 10U, 12U, 14U, and so on. And by following the age requirements, no player would be the youngest player and the oldest player. They would only be 2 years difference in age. Even if you turn 13, you're still within a 2-year age gap as of November 30th. I mean, there's always going to be physical differences with any kids. I mean, you have small kids, you have big kids, but we just go with the ages, and it gets a little confusing because they talk about, well, maybe a 7th grader who would still fall under the 12 and under. It's like, but that's why we don't have the 7th grade. We don't go by grades. We're just going by ages. So, and again, this has worked out within every age that we've ever had, even within the grades, which could have varying ages. There, it has worked out that, again, we would only be a 2-year age gap between the oldest and youngest. Now, if you're playing up, so you have somebody who would be 12U eligible, but is playing on a 14U team, they could have a difference of, it might be a 3-year age gap, but I mean, you're essentially choosing to move up at that point. And we have had a few. We are limiting it to a 3-year age gap. We have had a few teams where we didn't realize it at the time, but they've had kids who are way too young playing on a 14U team because they didn't have enough kids, and then they end up having 10 and 11-year-olds playing, which is absolutely not acceptable. So so again, with a 3-year age gap, that's okay. You're making that choice. With anything younger than that, then we would definitely need to have a conversation. But we're not outright allowing that. The other, so that's touching on that. And again, people can contact us directly for more information on that. the question about the clocks, most of our gyms were either using the tabletop scoreboards, or we're using, or we actually have access to the wall-mounted scoreboards. But none of the public schools do we have access to the wall-mounted scoreboards. So the tabletop is about the best that we have. Now, depending on for teams, they may have to come out and kind of peek over to kind of see that, but that's the best that we have at this point. We just don't have any additional abilities with that. And again, some of the private locations, they allow us to use the scoreboards, but none of the public schools would allow us to use scoreboards. Talking about some of the near future items, we have, and we've had it for 70 some years now, 75 plus, annual awards. And within those awards, we have high school athletes that we give a high school athlete award to. We have coaches awards, athletic directors, but you have to send us your nominations for these. They are available online at the at our homepage website, washyouth.org at 80, and also at ADW you can also .org. You can also go there as well. So we do need to get those nominations from you, and we ask that you really consider people who are, you don't want to look at their records and so on. You want to look at how they perform with the kids. You know, are they there? Are they teaching the gospel? Are they helping to build character within sports? So you don't want to look to see whether or not they won the city championships and so on. Not that that's rules anybody out, but you want it to be based on more than the number of trophies that they have. And we're still we do apologize for the some of the technical issues here. We just realized Mary's computer, she just got a new computer assigned about two or 3 weeks ago, and I guess some of the configurations weren't working out. But let me take one last check. We are planning on doing these as in hopes that we can free up people from having to drive out to meetings, and also have the ability to go on, to also view it online. We've gotten all positive feedback so far. And let me check the age. There's a question about the age cutoff, saying they thought it was August 31st, but we've changed that to the different sports. So essentially, each of the sports, depending on, essentially for spring soccer, fall soccer and cross country, they follow a different age group cutoff date, which would be that would have been August 31st for those, but for basketball it is November 30th, which is essentially we consider the season to start December 1st, depending on how that weekend falls, but essentially December 1st. So it is your age as of the day before the start of the season. Again, I'm just checking, see if there's any more. There's one about gold and silver divisions for basketball playoffs, but we have the and we do have that for soccer, but we do not have that for basketball, because soccer for basketball we have the division playoffs, and then so you are playing within your division. Soccer is just a different format, because there are no division playoffs. They go straight to gold, silver, and bronze city playoffs, more or less. But for basketball, it's a different structure with that. So that would stay the same. Past that, again, there may be some other questions in here. I know there are some questions. Just harder to kind of see, and we may have covered. I think we covered a few of these, and a few of these are repeats. So again, we're going to close that for the delegate meeting. Again, I appreciate your input. Please let us know how how you like this format. Contact us directly with any questions that you have. But we really need to, and everybody did a really good job with getting their teams in for soccer, and that really helped get out the schedules and work around all the conflicts. We had very few little changes here and there on that, barring the weather issues, which are always apparent. But we really need to have your team registrations in by the cutoff dates, and so that we can work on schedules and get them out. It's one of the biggest complaints. Why do we have schedules like 2 days beforehand? Why are they always changing? It's like, because we don't have the information from you. So we need to get that information from you. So again, we very much appreciate you getting us that information in. And we know it's tough, but it's it's tough on our end too. So so again, thank you and appreciate it.